following video is brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Boston sports content.
I got the Boston Celtics going to the finals.
I got to win the Real.
It's time to represent your city. Put your hands up. Colin, you know we do it for Boston. Hey, ain't nobody falling like Boston. Yeah, hey, ain't nobody do it like Boston. Where the legends get made, where the banners get raised, bright lights, big stage. Boston. All the fire we bring in a city full of rings, it's a beautiful thing out in Boston. And you ain't hard like that, you don't put it on the line with your squad like that. That's right, Boston. All we do is win like cigars in the gym, and we at it again. I say, Beantown, what's up? What's up? 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 Feel the energy shift, now we jumping at the gym. Represent, showing out how we ball above the rim. Larry Legend, 86, to the truth in 08. Cement your name with the all-time greats. Till banner 18 in the Raptors. Celtic green, only green that matters. It's about that time. Ain't another city that's louder than mine. Always gonna shine with the game on the line. What you think was gonna happen, man? That's how we do it in Boston. Ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah. Ain't nobody do it like Boston.
All right. Welcome into this episode of the Dynasty Proud podcast brought to you by BSEN. I'm Ryan at 19_loading. We're coming to you on this Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, as the Celtics are halfway through a 6-game road trip on the West Coast, some late night games and a lot of not so great opponents. That doesn't mean we don't have things to talk about. We're joined this week by Justin Turpin. He covers the Celtics for WEEI. He's a part of the Jones and Keefe program during the midday slot on the station as well. Justin, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, anytime, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So it's 6 straight wins for the Celtics right now since the Thunder game. That's the last game they lost. They've now, admittedly, they've beaten the Heat and the Nets twice, and the Jazz and the Blazers, and the Kings are probably the best team on that list that they've beaten. Most recently, obviously got that win last night in Sacramento, 113-95. But I feel like the story really is the Jason Tatum injury. So what's the latest? What have you heard, and what should we know about that?
Yeah, we should have an update on the injury report within about a couple hours here, just because it's a West Coast game tomorrow night at 10 p.m., so it's going to come out a little bit later than normal. But from everything we're hearing now, it's just a traditional sprained ankle, and it looked a little bit worse just from his reaction. You don't really see that much from Jason. He's usually one to just pop up, brush it off, and walk off under his own power. But, it definitely added a little, frightening, a little bit of fright there, because you see him moving around, squirming around like that. But from what we're hearing now, it's just a traditional sprained ankle. He walked out of there last night without a boot on, was walking with just a little bit of a limp, which is to be expected when you sprain an ankle. So, they got 10 games now between the playoffs. They'll have to wait through the play-in tournament anyway, so they have plenty of time, and there's really no reason to rush him back. The only reason to rush him back would be if he's pushing for All-NBA, which he's going to be on the first team for the fourth straight year in a row this season. So, yeah, that's the only reason you push him back, but he's at 65 games anyway, and it's not like you're not going to see him again this regular season. I know people want to joke about, hey, we'll put him on ice until the postseason. It doesn't seem to me like that's going to be the case. They want to ramp up, and he's going to want to be out there. So, yeah, it sucks because right now he's having one of his best stretches in his career, and we're seeing him play some of the best basketball we've ever seen. But, it's part of the game, and I guess he'll be ready to go come the postseason.
Yeah, like you said, he already hit that 65-game threshold too. So there's really no reason for him to rush. But he's also somebody who, he likes staying in rhythm. He likes playing. He does. Right. He's not somebody that will sit out for a long time. So I don't think he'll. I don't know. We'll get the injury report and we'll find out. But so Sabonis obviously was the guy involved with the play there. He apologized after the game, and you also saw on the court immediately after the fact. Tatum and Sabonis kind of shared a moment where it was clear, like, there's no hard feelings with those guys. And that's how Tatum is too. Like, I don't think he really treats anybody with too much, he doesn't hold grudges like that. At least it doesn't seem that way. But did you think that it was a dirty play at all?
No, I don't think it was a dirty play. I think it is a play that the officials kind of, I don't want to say invited, but I guess they kind of allow it when you don't call those landing zone flagrant fouls on Jason Tatum. I mean, how often do you see players landing in his landing zone and it doesn't really get whistled? So I guess you invite it when you don't whistle them and you don't call the foul on it. So I don't think it's dirty. I think he's just trying to make a closeout and it was a reckless play. I think there's a difference between reckless and dirty, and I would say it's reckless, but I don't think it was intentional at all that he was trying to slide his foot under and injure him. I just think it was part of the game. So no, not a dirty play, reckless for sure, and one that could have been prevented. I mean, Jason Tatum tried to warn the officials about it months ago when it happened against the Bucks, when Giannis did it. I mean, he tried to warn them, and he had a pretty colorful post-game interview after that where he was calling them out like, this can't happen. You can't miss those calls. And it just invites it a little bit when it's not being called. So that's why you need to have them held to a standard where they're whistling that all the time when they're by the books and they're calling that, because it really does jeopardize health.
Yeah, and we've seen it with Celtics players too. I mean, Horford is a guy that gets in these situations a lot just because he closes out hard and he doesn't like to not contest shots, but he's frequently under people's feet. And I mean, this is why they put the rule in place. It doesn't always get called, like you said, but it's not like it doesn't happen regularly around the league. And I do think it was really just an accident. Like, I don't think Sabonis did it on purpose, and you could tell he was feeling bad about it too. And we kind of already talked about, what the team's priority will be as far as, or what Tatum's priority will be as far as, trying to get back in rhythm for the playoffs. So what do you think the team's perspective is on that?
Yeah, I think it's a balance. And I think that right now they're prioritizing health and rest, but they also want to start ramping guys up. So it is a balance. I mean, they played 12 games in March, and 8 of those games they've been missing 2 or more of their top 6. So they're resting guys, and they have to, right? They understand that they're in the situation they're in. Like, they're not going to catch Cleveland as much as people want to be like, hey, let's go make a run for the 1 seed. It makes no sense with this team. I mean, Sam Hauser's been dealing with something all year with his back. Drew's still dealing with the mallet finger. Jalen, clearly not himself, dealing with a knee injury. Jason, now he's injured. Like, it made no sense to gun for the 1 seed before, when you had to essentially be perfect down the stretch, and you needed Cleveland to still drop a couple, and there's no guarantee with that. So, I mean, they're prioritizing the rest, and they've made that clear with how they're handling it, and guys sitting out and guys taking nights off. But, you also have to look at it like this starting 5 hasn't had much time together. I mean, last night was their first game together since February 23rd against the Knicks. It was 15 games ago, and they only played, I think it was 12 minutes together last night. So you want to get those guys on the floor together, and that's part of the ramp-up process. Like, you're not going to see guys just sitting the entire time up until the postseason, right? They're going to want to get guys in for 40-minute stretches, have them play a big game, like kind of ramp their bodies up for the postseason. So you'll see a couple of dress rehearsals once Tatum gets back, and everyone else needs to stay healthy, obviously, for that to happen. But I mean, last night wasn't the last time you're going to see the starting 5 together. And Joe's been very vocal about their inconsistencies, especially earlier in the year, where teams are guarding them differently, right? The Celtics didn't make any changes to their roster. Obviously, they brought in Baylor Shireman, but that's kind of ends of the roster cosmetic stuff. It was nothing at the top. So all these teams are spending the summer looking at this film of the Celtics from their NBA Finals run, and they have all this. They're spending the entire time looking at this, and then you're planning to kind of stop that. So, I mean, the Celtics they showed a ton of different stuff at them earlier in the year, and they struggled to adapt to it, and that's why having more time on the floor is so important. So I look for them to do that, but also prioritize the rest, because they're in that luxury. They have that advantage. Why not do it?
Yeah, and they have the talent, like you said, too, to be able to kind of balance it and play one guy one night and still win. But they don't even really need to worry about that at this point. I'm glad you brought up Jalen too. We can get into that in a little bit. But with Tatum still, he's injured this same ankle in the past. Do you worry about that being a recurring thing, or is it kind of more the old adage that you're more susceptible to an ankle injury if you've injured it once before?
I mean, I guess a mixture of both. When you sprain an ankle, I feel like it's easier to come back once you've sprained it before, because you've already been there. It's almost like it's more flexible in a way. So I'm not really worried about that. I mean, every basketball player knows it's kind of an inherent risk of the game. Like, every time you're on the floor, like, that's why the shoes are higher up. That's why you tape up the ankles. Like, it's just kind of an inherent risk of playing the game. So, I mean, I'm not really concerned about it. Obviously, you never want to see your star player go down right before the postseason, especially a guy like Jason Tatum, knowing how important he is. But I mean, I don't think there's really any concern long-term about it. Like, it's just an ankle sprain. Like, if it was something more, if it was like a broken foot or something, like maybe that's a little bit different, but it's an ankle sprain. He's probably had dozens of these throughout his life playing on both feet, haven't playing basketball for as long as he has. So I don't think there's really much concern to it. The only concern I would have is just the rhythm he was in, how well he's been playing since the All-Star break, how well he's seeing the floor. And I mean, he's an all-NBA talent, one of the best players in the league. Like, it's not like missing 4 games is going to completely knock him off his balance here and knock him off what he was doing. Like, he'll be just fine. It's just sucks that it happens right now, right before the postseason, during the stretch that he's playing in.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I guess I'd rather have it happen now than April 13th or June 1st. Like, that would be a much bigger problem. So I guess it's sort of a blessing in disguise that it's happening now.
Right.
And then going back to Jalen too, you brought it up already. He's been dealing with some nagging injuries all season. He just really hasn't looked like himself. And there's also the fact that if he wants to make All NBA, he has to play in most of these games coming up to meet that 65 game threshold that we talked about. Wouldn't you rather have him rest though, and maybe give up on the award thing?
I would, yeah. I mean, like you said, he's been dealing with stuff all year. He's missed different amounts of time because of different injuries. So, yeah, I would like to see him rest up and get ready for the postseason. But the thing is with Jalen is he's very prideful, and he's very deliberate of what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. And I think he explicitly said it a couple weeks ago when he said it was on his agenda to finish the season strong. I think he kind of tipped his hand a little bit and was like, hey, I'm looking at this All-NBA. Look at all these guys that are disqualified that are ahead of him. Like, he has a real opportunity to steal a spot on the All-NBA roster. And that's a big deal to him because he takes a lot of pride in what he does. So I think he's absolutely looking at that, and he knows he's dealing with something. And he also understands what's at stake here. Like, he understands that they need him at his best if they want to get to where they want to be, especially trying to do it again after, like we said, all this film that's out on him and, how teams are going to play him in the postseason. So he understands that, but he's also looking at it like, man, like, I can add to my Hall of Fame resume with an All-NBA and another NBA Finals in 2 years. Like, man, that you're looking at that, it's like there's real conversation of him being a Hall of Famer. So I think he's looking at the guys that have already been disqualified, and he's like, I'm going to make a push. I'm going to try to do this. Now, is he going to play in 8 of the final 10 like he needs to? I think he's certainly going to try. I mean, medical team will probably have a say in that. Joe Mazzulla will probably have a say in that. But Joe also strikes me as the type of guy that'll let him do it. Like, Joe, if Jalen wants to do this, if this is something that he believes in, that he takes pride in, I think Joe would let him do it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. But I don't blame Jalen for wanting to do it. Like, you're talking legacies here, especially with, again, who's already been disqualified. You could really add to your resume, and it's already a pretty damn good one, with an All-NBA team and another deep, hopefully NBA Finals run for him. So I think he's absolutely looking at that. And it's just a matter of, like, you want him to be himself going in. So maybe he guts out 8 in a row here. It's just the final 2. I believe it's 2 back-to-backs against Charlotte. I mean, maybe he sits those 2, right? Tries to gut it out and then takes a week or 2 off before the postseason. So we'll see, but I think he's absolutely looking at that, and he should be. I don't blame him.
It's a good point when you bring up the legacy and the long-term part of it, because I think sometimes we, and I specifically, get caught up looking at it from the contract perspective. And I'm like, he's already gotten paid. He doesn't, he's already got a supermax. He's not due for a contract anytime soon. So it's not like he needs to be playing for the money. But when you're looking at it from, putting together a resume and what your basketball reference page is going to look like at the end of your career, those all NBAs are important. I mean, they definitely are. So I'm glad you said that, because it's a good point. And I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Yeah, and if you look at the list, I'm trying to pull it up right now. Like, I don't have it right in front of me, but like, there are plenty of guys that are almost always on those teams already disqualified, that are ineligible. So if there's a year that he's going to kind of sneak one in, this is the year to do it. And again, he's just so prideful. Like, he understands, like, he wants to leave a legacy. And I think we see it a lot just being around the team and hearing him in press conference all the time. But I also think it's apparent in Celtic City. I don't know if you're watching that documentary, but like, the way he just portrays himself, he really wants to leave his mark on this franchise and on the league. And what better way to do that than going down as one of the better players to do it by going into the Hall of Fame? So I think that's absolutely something he's looking at.
That's a fair point. And obviously, going down this last stretch and looking at the last few games with some guys in and out of the lineup, there have been some opportunities for some other guys, notably like Shireman and Cornette are two that I look at. Shireman's really over the last 3 games or so. I guess he didn't play in that Jazz game. But the last 3 that he's played, he's looked really well, or he's looked really good. He had the 20-point outing with the 6 threes against Brooklyn last week, and then he had 6 points, 5 boards, and 3 assists against Portland. And then last night he had 9 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, 2 steals, and a block, and he was a plus 17. And he had that 6 steal into the behind the back pass in the backcourt, which I think was the highlight of the night. What are you seeing from him that's maybe earning him this, the increased role? And do you expect him to get more opportunities over these last few weeks of the season?
Yeah, 100% he'll get more opportunities because 1, he's earned that, and 2, I just don't know how much more he'll have in the postseason. The top 9's the top 9. And I think everyone knows that it's the starting 5: Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Luke Cornette. That's it. Maybe if somebody goes down, you see him kind of in an O'Shea Brissett role, very minimal in game 2, right? But he had an important piece of that in the game. I think it was the first quarter. He helped really turn the tide with a big run at the end of the quarter. And maybe it was only a couple minutes, but I mean, his presence was felt. So maybe if someone goes down, you see him a little bit in the postseason, but like, I don't see any role when they're fully healthy that he's on the postseason floor. So it'll be interesting. I mean, he's earned it, but I think most of this has also become just because guys have been out. Like I said, they've played 8 of their 12 games this month with 2 or more of their top 6 on the bench. So he's kind of turned to guys, and that's a credit to Baylor though, right? Because he's going to Baylor over Jordan Walsh, for example, or Neemias Queta. I know Baylor and Queta play different positions, but still he's going to them over different guys because he's earned that right. And I think he's just filling his role perfectly. Obviously, he's shooting the ball terrifically, but last night, even the 2 shots, or the 2 plays that I think of, number 1 was when he missed the corner 3, stole the ball and hit Pritchard with behind the back pass, which is something he can really do. He's a really good passer. He was a quarterback in high school, and you see it sometimes. So he doesn't really have the ball in his hand as much to be much of a playmaker with the Celtics. And I guess that's part of the luxury of playing with Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all these guys. You're not going to have the ball and you're not going to really have the opportunities to play make like that, but you see parts of it. And then late in the fourth quarter, when he hit the corner 3, he crashed hard from the corner, tipped it out to Derek, relocated and knocked down a 3. Like, he's doing all the right things. And that's what really doesn't go unnoticed from Joe Mazzulla, and especially his hustle. Like, that's really something that Joe loves. And Joe's still talking about when he dove on the ball a couple weeks ago at home. Like, he mentions that all the time. Like, that's just something he's proud of. So he's filling his role. He's doing his job, and he looks like a ball player. I think it took him a little bit to get comfortable. And Joe brought some unique perspective to that last week. He's like, what did you guys expect? Like, he's playing sporadically. He's a rookie going up and down from Maine. Like, would you expect him to just come in and start tearing up the league? Like, no, it wasn't going to happen. Not on this team, for sure. Not on this team. So now that he's kind of looking more comfortable, you can see his confidence. And Joe said the word confidence is overrated, but like, it's pretty clear when the guy's turning around, blowing kisses, like screaming at the crowd. Like, that's confidence, no matter what you want to describe it as. And maybe he's always had that confidence. It's just come out a little bit more with the success, and that makes total sense. But, I mean, it's hard not to be encouraged, right? Because this guy, everyone knows what's happening this offseason, right? We'll see how many moves they make, but it's almost inevitable that there are going to be moves made this offseason. And we'll see. Maybe the ownership sale, and we'll get to that later, Bill Chisholm and what he said and, you know, how he handles things might be a little bit different, but Baylor Shireman's going to have a role on this team, whether it's next year or the year after. Like, he's going to have a role on this squad. So to see him excelling a little bit, and granted it's a short sample size, but, you know, kind of resembling the player that they took when they stuck and picked in the first round of the draft, because I mean, that comes with a guaranteed salary. And for a team that was against it on the salary cap already, I fully expected Brad to trade back and not pick in the first round, but they clearly saw something. They went with Shireman, and you're seeing why they did that.
What was it a few years ago when they traded back in the second round like 5 times in a row? That was the most frustrating thing I've ever seen.
They just kept doing it. Like, and that's what I expected this year in full honesty. Like, because there's a guaranteed salary for the first 2 years that come with first round picks. And obviously we've been talking about it all year, the cap constraints and all the luxury tax, you know, penalties the Celtics are in right now. I didn't think they would add to that with the first round pick with the guarantee. And granted, it's minuscule compared to what like Tatum, Brown, White, all those guys are making, but it's still a guaranteed salary. So they clearly saw something. They wanted to go out and get him. They thought he can contribute sooner rather than later. That's why they took him. He was 20, he's 24 now. I think he might've been 24 when he was drafted as well. If not, he was 23, fifth year senior. So they saw something. They saw a guy that can come out and contribute, and we're really starting to see like the vision a little bit.
I think you brought up his hustle too. One of the things I think is a little bit underrated about him, he's a fantastic rebounder for his size. And you saw that actually even in college when he was playing at Creighton. He's playing with like one of the best 7-footers in college basketball in Ryan Kalkbrenner, and he's still averaging double-digit rebounds a night, which is insane to me. And with the Celtics, there may not be as many to go around because he's got so many other great rebounders around him, but it's valuable. I don't think that can be overstated.
And that's the thing. If he's going to play, it's going to come through plays like that. It's not going to be like what he did against Brooklyn last week when he's knocking down all these threes and he's carrying the bulk of the offense. Like, that's not his role. It's never going to be even in the future, say it's Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. Like, Baylor Shireman's not going to be taking away, and Pritchard will probably be there too. So he's not going to be taking away from the offense of those guys. Like, if he wants to be on the floor and find his role, it's going to be doing that stuff. It's going to be like rebounding, playing defense, just knowing your role in the system and being able to execute. And I think he's shown all of that, which is encouraging because obviously he didn't see a lot of time earlier in the year. And most of the time he did see was garbage time. So for him to be able to slide in now and just look like a natural with the regulars is really encouraging. So that's what March basketball is all about, like, especially with the Celtics. Like, what are we doing right now? We're just kind of waiting for the postseason. Like, we're going to be sitting here waiting for a Jason Tatum update. Like, nobody was talking about last night's game for last night's game. It was all about Tatum in the postseason. Like, that's just the luxury we have right now, right? We're looking at it as like, well, is the starting five going to play? Who's going to play? Who's not? Like, so Baylor's giving us a little something to talk about, and that's what it's all about. It's auditions for those guys because you're probably not going to see them much in the postseason. So get as much film on tape that you can get and be able to work with stuff over the offseason.
Yeah, like you said, there was a game last night. We really haven't even talked about it, which
Right.
I don't think we need to.
No.
And so the other guy on that list that I mentioned is Luke Cornett. There's a really interesting role and kind of a chemistry with Tatum that's been building, and just looking at the situation with the bigs, Horford is obviously getting close to the end of his career at this point. Porzingis is great, but isn't always able to be relied upon to stay on the court. So do you see a potential for Cornett to be with the team long-term, given how well he and Tatum play together in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it really all depends on how the new owner wants to do business, right? Because he's not going to, he might come back on a minimum and maybe he understands that, like, hey, I can stay here, keep my family here, because he's got two young kids. So maybe he doesn't want to uproot them from what they're doing, right? Maybe he wants to stay back. He turned down a decent amount of money last offseason to stay here on a veteran minimum. And maybe that was the championship. Maybe that was because he's already been here. Like, I don't know what it is. So, him and Al Horford are their only free agents going into the year. You'd imagine that Al Horford's coming back if he doesn't retire. It's not like he's going to go somewhere else at this point. It's either Boston or he's going home and retiring, which I don't think anyone really foresees that now. He wants to keep playing. Luke, I think, wants to stay here, but it's like he's turning 30 in July. Does he want to try to cash in before it's too late, right? Does he want to take more? Like, you probably can make at least 4 or 5 times what you're making right now in Boston on the minimums elsewhere. Like, maybe he wants to do that. Maybe he's like, I'm 30. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do this. Because the role players, the shelf life on them isn't as long as it is for the superstars, right? For like Luke Cornett, he probably won't be playing until he's 38, 40. That's just how it goes. So maybe he's looking at it like, I want to cash in this offseason, or maybe he's content where he's at. He loves Boston. His family likes it here. And, they're always going to welcome him back. He's one of the most well-respected and loved people in that locker room. So it'll be interesting. And I think they'd love to keep him around because he's so overlooked, like just what he does, because he doesn't stuff the stat sheet every night. Like, he just does his job night in and night out. He's always in the right place. He's probably one of the smarter players on the team, and that's probably why he has such a good connection with Tatum, because both of them are very intelligent on the basketball court, and they're very good at reading defenses. He's always in the right position. So just what he does isn't always quantifiable in in the stat sheet, which is why he might be overlooked. And I think him just doing his little goofy celebrations, like, oh, this is just a big goofball. Like, he's just barking, like he's dabbing, running up the court. Like, people are like, oh, this guy's just funny. Like, no, he's a damn good player, and the Celtics are lucky to have him.
He's like, I mean, I think back to like, not that I was anything in high school, but like I played in high school and I was on the end of the bench because I didn't play. And like, me and my buddies are just goofing off. And, he's like that, but actually on the court. Like he's just goofing off, doing all these goofy celebrations. Like you said, it's pretty funny to watch. He's just a really funny dude.
And he's going to play in the postseason. Like he's going to get playoff minutes. They've leaned so heavily on the double big this year. And Luke Cornett has been so good, so efficient that he's earned playoff minutes this year. I mean, he played some last year. Obviously, with KP being down, it helped. But, like, he needs to be on the floor. They are a better team with him on the floor, especially when he's with Tatum. Like, that pairing is one of the best in the NBA. And the Celtics need to tap into that, and they will. Like I said, the top nine's the top nine. It's the starting five: Pritchard, Hauser, Horford, Cornett. Those are the guys you're going to see in the postseason, barring any injuries. And then maybe they stick with 8, or maybe Baylor Shireman or Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig, I mean, that's another thing with Torrey Craig. Like, that guy was an everyday contributor when the Suns went to the NBA Finals. Like, he's done it in the big moments. And I guess it kind of goes back to a question you asked earlier. It's like, how are they going to manage the end of the season? Like, well, if you go get Torrey Craig for his championship experience, knowing he's been there and done that, maybe you try to acclimate him a little bit more. I know they've been leaning heavily on Baylor Shireman, but, like, let's get Craig some run, because this is a guy that's proven he can do it. I mean, he was, the 7th man of that Phoenix team that wins the NBA Finals, started a couple of games for him. So he's been there, and that experience, I know it's thrown out there a ton, but it is so important, especially when you win it. Like, Drew Holiday, like, just look at what he did in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. It's funny, like, Svi Mykhailiuk was here last week, 2 weeks ago with the Jazz, and was talking about the year before, just reminiscing on the championship run. And somebody asked him, like, when did you know, like, this had championship identity? He's like, when Drew Holiday got here. And I think everyone felt that way. Like, everyone felt that way because he'd been there and done that. And now I know Torrey Craig didn't win the finals that year. I should have, Chris Paul, but as long, like, he's been there and done that. He has the experience. So that's important, and I'd like to see them tap into that just in case they need to get into that, because I think they trust Torrey Craig more than Baylor Shireman in the postseason. But Joe's a madman, so you really don't know.
Yeah, and coming up, the upcoming stretch, they've got games against teams. Well, the Suns actually are
2 of them.
Their record is bad, but I mean, they've got talent, so I don't think you can necessarily sleep on them. They've had a bad season, but that doesn't mean they have bad players. Spurs, they're now without Wembanyama, and they don't even have their coach at this point, with Popovich being away from the team. The Grizzlies and the Knicks are really the last 2 teams on their schedule that are above 500 from now until the last game of the year, which is April 13th, which is the second of that back-to-back thing with the Hornets. And it'll be interesting to see what we see over the kind of the home stretch. And it's hard to believe we're almost in April at this point. You brought up the sale, though, too. I didn't even have this on my agenda for today, but what were your thoughts? And now that it's been a few days, what are you hearing? Anything behind the scenes that you could, dish out to us? What's going on?
Yeah, my initial thoughts were, who the hell is this guy? And I run to Wikipedia, and he doesn't have one. So that's amazing. Like, how can you be a multi-billionaire and not have a Wikipedia page? Like, that's amazing that he stayed so low profile on that. But I mean, he said all the right things. Like, obviously, you can only judge him off what he's saying right now. Like, we're still a little ways away from when he'd actually start making moves, and we'll see if it matches his words. But from everything he said, it seems really genuine. Like, he really does seem, and obviously a Massachusetts native, like, he really does seem to just love this team. And he believes, like, he actually believes in the honor that he has of being the next owner of the Boston Celtics. And I think he understands the responsibility that it comes with and how much people actually care. Like, I really don't think this is somebody that, and again, time will tell, but it doesn't seem like this is a guy that's just doing it for the profit, just to do it, just to have another investment. Like, he really cares. Like, it's very, I mean, it's not obvious, I guess, because you don't know. Like, he could just be playing the game. Like, he could just be doing a great job with it. But it's hard not to look at it and be like, wow, he's done a great job so far. And he has a great nickname, like Billy Banners. That's sick. But like, you have to win banners to keep that. Like, you have to actually do your thing. So, I mean, so far so good. Again, we'll see what happens with the actions if they meet the words. But he said everything, and if you listen to him, like, it really does feel genuine.
Yeah, I don't think we can crown him just yet, but like you said, a lot to look forward to. But we were talking with Noah Dalzell on the podcast last week, and she just kind of mentioned she just kind of mentioned that regardless of who owned the team, whether it was the Grosbecks or if it was a new owner coming in, they're going to have some hard decisions coming up because of the second apron. So what are you seeing as far as the implications going forward, and what do you expect this new ownership group to have to go through?
Yeah, they're going to have some difficult conversations because it's beyond the luxury tax. Like, it's also the basketball penalties. Like, you are very restricted of what you can do in the future. Like, it really could set your franchise back after you kind of have your moment, which are they willing to kind of live with that? And are also they looking at it as like, hey, as long as we have Jason and Jalen, we can be competitive. Like, we're not really caring about our 2031 first round pick being frozen or whatever it is. Like, maybe they're looking at it like that. I also wonder, like, we're just talking about how genuine it seems with Bill Chisholm. I wonder if he's looking at it like, well, I can't come in and blow this up. Like, I can't blow this up. Like, I'm going to be public enemy number one right away if I come in and start selling off pieces. And I think everyone believes that if they were to make a couple moves, a couple of names to watch, be like Drew, Kristaps, and even Sam Hauser. Like, but does he look at it as like, well, I can't come in here and just start blowing stuff up? Like, this roster is what it is. And if I stick it through for another year, Kristaps will come off the books. Al will already be lesser on the contract, assuming he takes a minimum. Then you can get to that bridge when you get there. But obviously you can't live in the second apron. Maybe short term you could. Maybe this year you could do it, and partially because you don't want to kind of build yourself a bad reputation in year one. You don't want to kind of spoil that right away. But, I mean, time will tell, I guess, with him. But they're going to have some tough decisions. And I'm not convinced that they're going to sell it off anymore. I was really convinced before. But just hearing what he's saying, and I think he really does understand, like, man, if I go ahead and trade Drew Holiday in my first couple months of the job, they are going to hate me. Look what Dallas just did with Luka Doncic. They get new ownership. They ship off Luka, and now there's boycotts out front of the stadium. Now it's a lot different with Luka Doncic and Drew Holiday, as much as Drew's loved here. But I just don't know if he's going to come in and blow it all up. It's going to be interesting. But again, with the basketball penalties they're facing and everything else that comes with it, there's going to be difficult conversations to have. And obviously when you're spending $6.1 billion right now, it's going to be closer to like $7 billion by the time it's all said and done, because only 50% of the sales going through right now. So by the time the other 50% or 49% goes through, it's going to be a little bit higher. The value is going to be a little bit higher. So you're spending $6.7-ish billion on a franchise, and then you're going to cut out a $500 million luxury tax bill. Like, it's tough to do. It's really tough to do. So they're going to have tough decisions, but I wonder if that's something they got into. You had to have thought about it before, right? It's not something they're just going in like, yeah, you know what, we're going to bid on the team and then we'll have those conversations. Like, no, that's not what it is. He's already talked about it with his investors, and they've done a deep dive on that, and they understood what they were getting into. So I'd find it hard to believe they don't already have a plan. They don't already know what they're going to do. And I think there's full faith that they are going to keep doing it. But maybe Wick Grossbeck shouted it the other day. But I mean, for now, I'm not convinced they're going to blow it up.
I mean, that's good to hear. And obviously you would know a lot more than I would. I brought this up with Noah last week. I was pulling up the list while you were talking because there's a list of other teams in the NBA that have private equity firms invested in them, like the Celtics now do with Sixth Street being a part of this acquisition. And those teams are Golden State, Philly, Sacramento, Utah, Atlanta, Minnesota, and Sacramento. Philly is the only team on that list that has not traded one of their best players, which it's just something to watch. It's, I don't know. It's just something I'm thinking about, but it's good to hear that
part of that too would be how much Philly spent this offseason, right? Like, they went all in. Granted, it was with the wrong players. Like, you try to pair a nursing home together and expect it to get through the Celtics. Like, that wasn't going to happen, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not really looking into it a ton with the private equity stuff. Like, it's like this guy seems genuine, and that's all you can do. Like, the rest will take care of itself.
And that firm in particular has investments in other franchises as well, and so it's not other franchises in sports as well. So they've got sort of a diversified portfolio. So they may not be quite as involved. They're really just there for the capital, which is important, obviously, with the payroll that this team's going to have going forward. So, all right, man. Thanks for coming on. This has been great. Hopefully, we can have you back at some point as we head toward the playoff. Is there anything else you were thinking about for the Celtics? Anything coming up that you're watching in particular?
Yeah, just stay healthy. Really, just stay healthy. Like, we'll see. Like, I'm interested to see what they keep tinkering with about like different lineups, different 2-man pairings, whatever. See what we see, but everything comes down to health. I think, like, obviously there's been some up and downs with the health this year. We mentioned them earlier: Sam, Jalen, Drew, Kristaps. Like, you just want everyone healthy going into the postseason. And I also, like I said earlier, I want to see that starting 5 get back out there together, and I want to see a couple dress rehearsals. Like, obviously it's going to be tough with Jason, and we'll know in about an hour how long he's going to miss with that ankle injury when we see the injury report and get a little more clarity on that. But if you have the opportunity to do it, like, go ahead, get those guys on the floor, because they've been pretty inconsistent this year. Not that I'm worried about them in the playoffs.
But seeding is pretty much locked up at this point. So it's, what else is there to play for other than just the sake, just the, continuity and just getting things going into the playoffs. I mean, that's really probably what's most important. And just balancing, like you said, the health, but also trying not to get rusty going into round one. So we'll see how it all plays out. It should be good. The Celtics are 3-0 on this road trip they're on right now. They've got 3 games to go. I mean, if they can come out 5-1 or 6-0, that would be pretty awesome. But again, it probably doesn't really matter right now. So obviously we'll have plenty to talk about over the coming weeks and going into the playoffs and the matchups and all that. But Justin, again, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, my man. Always happy to join.
Cool. All right. For now, we will go ahead and wrap it up, and we will catch y'all next time.
Ends tonight here. It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.